Last year's Daredevil vs. Daredevil is the biggest video by a fair margin on the channel. In fact, many of you probably found out about this channel through that video. I never intended that video to be any bigger than anything else I had done. Sure, I hoped it would be successful, but I hope that with all my videos. This one actually delivered. It is by far the most loved and hated video on this channel. In fact, it has more dislikes than likes on my second most liked video. This is most likely because of the beginning, where my goal was to go completely over the top and pretty much say the exact opposite of my true feelings. My goal with this was twofold. I had noticed a lot of comments from people who strongly indicated they'd never finished watching the video they were commenting on, and also the praise Daredevil Season 1 was getting was insane, and I thought it would be fun to ruffle some feathers rather than say my true feelings right at the beginning, and to also see how many people bother listening to the whole video before commenting on it. The current standing of the channel is largely due to the fans who stuck through on that video to hear what I really had to say. It might have crossed your mind that I did the same thing with Jessica Jones Season 1, where I bashed it in the beginning, yet here I chose to be straightforward and honest in the beginning. Why the change? Well, Daredevil and Jessica Jones Season 1s were both fantastic in my opinion. I have issues with them, but overall they are very minor. Season 2 of Daredevil is a different beast. On to what you clicked on this video to hear, in my unbelievably nerdy voice. My thoughts on Daredevil Season 2. The first part, I'll do spoiler-free talking about my overall thoughts on this season, and do a character comparison of the new major characters versus their most famous movie counterparts. Then I'll do a little spoiler discussion at the end with a fair warning beforehand. First, let's look at the new major characters. The Punisher has yet to have a good movie. The closest he got was the 2004 Punisher starring Thomas Jane, who I thought did a fine job with the role. Unfortunately, that movie isn't all that great. I'll be going into greater detail in my top 5 in a few weeks. Let me also admit that the Punisher was never one of my favorite characters. A guy that just shoots people is kind of boring in my opinion. When I dive into a superhero story, I want a mixture of grounded characters with some fantastical qualities. A guy running around killing bad guys with guns just feels very standard to me. I could watch a random action movie and get the same thing. All that being said, Jon Bernthal's Punisher stole the show with every scene he was in during Season 2. He is the best part of the whole season. He and the writers created a far more realistic Punisher than I'd ever seen before. He felt like a real person, not just a maniac with guns killing bad guys, though he has that aspect as well. Would Thomas Jane have done as well in this series? I'm genuinely not sure. I wasn't expecting Jon Bernthal to do as well as he did, but now after seeing it, I honestly don't want to see anyone else as the Punisher for a while. He owns the role for me, at least for the time being. I always felt like Jennifer Gardner's Elektra always got more grief than she deserved. I never really felt like the actress was truly a great fit for the role, but I did feel like she made an honest attempt to play the role as well as she could, and I thought she pulled it off well enough. Then we have Elodie Young's Elektra, who I feel is a much better fit for the character by a decent margin, but she falls victim to the season's shortcomings. The storyline with the Punisher is so fascinating. It literally feels like when Elektra pops up suddenly, we have all these new storylines that need to share time with the before dominant Punisher storyline. And sadly, the new storylines she brings with her are nowhere near as interesting as the Punisher stuff. So I end up liking 2003 Elektra's and 2016 Elektra's about the same, which is shocking considering how much more screen time 2016's Elektra gets. Of course, if we throw in 2005's Elektra with 2003's, I end up liking the Netflix version more simply because any shortcomings in Daredevil Season 2 pale in comparison to the shortcomings of 2005's Elektra. Overall, I liked Season 2, but it isn't remotely in the same league as the previous 2 Marvel Netflix seasons we've gotten. If the season was maybe about half as long and solely focused on the Punisher stuff, it would likely be just as strong as the other seasons. But as it is, the season feels watered down with all this hand baggage that Elektra brings with her when she appears on the show. On a raw cosmetic level, they spend the season upgrading the Daredevil costume, and it does grow on me, and I find myself liking it quite a bit more than when we first saw it in Season 1. 1 by a decent margin. However, Elektra's costume is completely underwhelming. Her costume in G.I. Joe Retaliation would have worked better. Then we get to the Punisher's costume, which is fantastic. It's different from the comic book version that feels more practical. But this time, the practicality of the suit works extremely well. The characters are more of a mixed bag this season. There's a relationship forming early on between Karen and Matt that goes nowhere fast and resolves itself for the season by having Karen walk in on Matt at the wrong time. It feels very much like a story arc from your standard soap opera. Matt spends a fair amount of the season blowing off his friends in favor of going out at night with Elektra, which gets rather annoying. All that being said, I did enjoy the season for the most part. There's a theme in this season about whether or not killing evil people is really bad.
I think you're a half measure. I think you're a man who can't finish the job. I think that you're a coward.
But it's really just seen a lot and not thoroughly tackled. I probably don't need to say it, but the fight scenes in this season are just as awesome, if not more awesome, than they were in Season 1. Don't go into this expecting another great Marvel Netflix season like we've gone before. Go into this expecting something enjoyable, and you should be fine. Now time for the spoilers. You've been warned. Stay at your own risk. Even though it was sold that this season would be Daredevil vs. Punisher, it's pretty much just the first few episodes. There's a great episode where Daredevil is chained to a rooftop by Punisher as the two discuss their different ideas on the whole vigilante thing. Unlike the leads in Batman v Superman, these two do have very different methodologies to each other that do clash. Yes, they both stop bad guys, but their beliefs on what method should be used to stop them provides the best dialogue of the season, if not the series, to date.
You know the one thing that you just can't see? You know you're one bad day away from being me.
But then Elektra comes into the show, and at first I'm excited to see what she brings. Then I see what she brings, and I'm completely underwhelmed. The main antagonist for Daredevil Season 2 isn't the Punisher, but the Hand, as led by Nobu. Initially, it seems like they'll provide a genuine threat, as their lack of heartbeat makes it very hard for Daredevil to, for lack of a better word, see them. But he seems like he's able to more or less hold his own well enough. Their leader Nobu, who you may remember from Season 1, comes off only mildly more developed than Malekith. Only again, he gets far more screen time, so there's no excuse for that. Stick tells Daredevil to listen for breaths instead of heartbeats, and that for some reason seems to be all he needs to fight them normally. Won't he know to listen for anything that might give away their position? Also, they have no heartbeats, but they have breath? Alright, sure, whatever. I've read a fair amount of Daredevil comic books, but not all of them, so if this is a comic book element, let me know. Though, even if it is, the show presents it in a very weak manner. Sadly, the Hand is the core storyline throughout most of this season. And while they do have their moments of feeling like a menace, they are never any more developed than that. They just appear to be zombie ninjas with little to explain why or even how they exist. What's perhaps worse is that the Hand storyline and the Punisher storyline that put together this season feel completely unconnected to each other. It feels like we're jumping between story 1, story 2. Story 1, story 2. There's really nothing connecting them to each other rather than Daredevil fighting them. The Punisher is the reason why Season 2 works at all. And also, a small Kingpin story arc between him and the Punisher doesn't hurt at all. Establishing Kingpin as a major villain for both Daredevil and Punisher is awesome. Perhaps we could get Kingpin as a major villain in the next Spider-Man movie. How cool would that be? This is a season where you have to take the good with the bad. The bad isn't terrible, but it is severely flawed. But the good is so great and worth the time it takes to wade through the bad. I just end up having to recommend this season, but go into it with expectations lowered. Hey, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. That helps me out a lot. And if you really love this video, consider visiting my Patreon page.